We want to give you another tweet that's coming in from Sarah Sanders. She has been sharing some information since this has rolled out. The letter now, she says this: a great day for America and for President real Donald Trump. After 2 years of wild anti-Trump hysteria, the president and his millions of supporters have been completely vindicated. We now bring in California Republican Congressman Devin Nunes to talk about that. He has been in the middle of much of these investigations over the last couple of years. Congressman, thanks for being with us. What do you make and how do you respond to Democrats who say this thing is far from over? This is just one piece of the puzzle.
It's no different, Shannon, than what they've been saying for the last many, many years. So we've had 2.5 years of this, and I have to remind everybody, let's not forget, it is likely that this investigation started in late 2015, but for sure by early 2016 by Clinton operatives and likely people at the highest levels of the FBI and Department of Justice. Let that sink in a second. This investigation was started in late 2015, early 2016 by Clinton operatives and DOJ and FBI officials. So we have had 3.5 years of this. Our counterintelligence capabilities in this country were turned against a political party. The American people should be ticked at this. And thank God we finally have an Attorney General, and I congratulate Attorney General Barr today. We finally have the grown-ups back in charge to get the Department of Justice back on its feet and clean out these dirty cops.
Do you think, though, because we've heard a lot today about people saying there needs to be accountability for the people who were involved in launching this investigation, who fed the investigation, whether it was through the dirty dossier, through other conversations and back-channel relationships, you know, is there going to be any accountability or investigation into whether there was actually anything that was illegal or anything that was done wrong there? I mean, Democrats control the House now and much of the investigative power. Do you really expect there will be any answers from those folks?
Well, look, we have a lot of the work was done by the Republican Intelligence Committee from last year and the Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committees. So the House Intelligence Committee has been sitting on, preparing, waiting for the Mueller report to be finished to deliver to Attorney General Barr our concerns. So we will send that in the form of a criminal referral. But people have to remember the House of Representatives, okay, and Republicans don't control it anymore, but even if we did, you know, we don't have the ability or the powers to go out and arrest people. But we do have the ability to make criminal referrals. Now that Attorney General Barr's there, you know that the Inspector General has an ongoing investigation. So look, I think I look at it this way. Either there's going to be justice served on the people who perpetuated this hoax for 3.5, 4 years, or if there's not, you are going to have generations of Republicans and conservatives in this country who will not trust the Department of Justice or the FBI. I mean, that's basically the choice. So, you know, as you know, I've been very far out there in front on this. I was the one who was very critical of Russia and the Obamas, dealing with Vladimir Putin for many, many years. And to see them turn this around after they had botched everything with Putin, from phony reset buttons to trying to get along with Putin to doing nothing about Putin when he invaded Crimea, and turn that around and blame it on the Republican Party, and then turn it around and blame it on the House Republicans, accusing us of crimes, and then we find out that these dirty people had corrupted our system and did things that, quite frankly, only happen in banana republics.
It's clear that there is serious partisan division on the Hill right now over this and so many other things. But now, as we know, and we've known for a while now, that there were Russian attempts to interfere with our elections, and lawmakers agree that that's ongoing, whether it's 2020, 2022, 2024. I mean, it's going to continue. Is there a place where there can be bipartisan agreement on concrete steps to fight back against that?
Well, look, let me remind you that Putin's been doing this for many, many years. Why do you think back in 2014 that I warned, as a member of the House Intelligence Committee, I warned the American public that if we didn't do something about Putin, that he was going to cause chaos in this country? That was in a public op-ed that I wrote. So we've been watching Putin for a very long time. The Obama administration, I'm not trying to go back on this, but they refused to spend money that we gave them. Look, I now see the Trump administration doing all that they can to take this Russian threat seriously. But let's not forget, Vladimir Putin is an old Soviet KGB guy. He's going to mess in our elections and has been messing in our elections since he's been in office. So it's happened before. It's going to continue to happen. And that's why we have to have a strong Department of Justice, a strong FBI, and so that our counterintelligence capabilities are used to fight Russia, not target political campaigns, which is what happened.
Yeah, and I think that's something the American people desperately want to see and want to hear, is that these are apolitical institutions when they exercise their powers to engage in these kind of investigations. Congressman Nunes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Shannon.
No collusion with Russia. Well, the RNC is calling the Attorney General's summary of the special counsel report a great day for all Americans. Though Democrats say that there are still serious questions about the issue of obstruction. Joining us now, RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. Great to have you with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Great to be with you.
Okay, so let's start with your counterparts over the DNC tweeting this. More Americans deserve answers. We can't trust the president or his team's word when it comes to this story, which is why we need to see the Mueller report. And as I just talked about with former Congressman Delaney, who's running in 2020, there has been this uniform assessment that Mueller was going to be fair. He's to be trusted. We have to wait for the report. But now that his report's been summarized by the Attorney General, who of course is nominated by President Trump, there are questions about the letter we saw today. How do you answer those doubts?
Well, I'm not surprised that Democrats are continuing to try and cast shadows over this presidency. They've never accepted the results of the 2016 election. But I do think it's important that we look back at history and what's happened to cause this report. First, the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC funded this fake dossier that went to the FBI that precipitated a 2-year investigation of our president that now has resulted in what we knew there was no collusion with Russia. So why have the American people had to pay $25 million in taxpayer dollars? There have been 2,800 subpoenas. This has been such an ongoing investigation that has hurt this presidency. The Democrats have tried to use it to delegitimize this president. They have lied to the American public. Chairman Schiff and Chairman Nadler have said that there were going to be charges of collusion. The Democrats owe the president an apology, and they also owe the American people the opportunity to move on. Let's put this behind us, and let's focus on the things that voters really want us to do in Washington, which is make their lives better and pass laws that are going to help this country.
Okay, so let me put up something. This is a Fox News poll. It was taken in the days before we got the report, obviously today, that says no collusion of any kind. When people were asked whether they think the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia at our last polling, again, before the result today, 44% said yes, 42% said no. Now, going into 2020, do you think those numbers were changed now that we have a number, although people on both sides say they're not going to be moved by the report. They're not going to change their assessment of the president based on what the Mueller report says. How do you convince more voters as the president runs for re-election that this assumption that they've made, at least in this poll, is wrong?
Well, absolutely, the Mueller report and the findings of this report that say there was no collusion. They actually go so far to say that there were attempts by the Russians to collude with the Trump campaign, and that the Trump campaign did not follow through with those, and that no American citizen colluded with Russia. So I think that's really important that this report has concluded, and that those conclusions were decisive in saying that there's no collusion. But I do think there has to be an overall look at the media, at the Democrat Party, at the leaders in the Democrat Party. Why did they continue to try and delegitimize this president? Why do we even have to have this investigation for 2 years based on a fake dossier paid by the DNC and Hillary Clinton? It's shameful. It's bad for our democracy. I'm pleased with the results today. They're great. But like you said, look at that poll. That's what they did. They tried to cast a shadow over this presidency who was elected by the American people in 2016. Democrats have never accepted the results of that election. So they've put these investigations forward. They're just going to continue to do that. The American people are smarter than that now, and they're going to look at the Democrats and know what they're up to, because this report exonerated our president, and it also shows that the Democrats aren't there to help the American people at all. They're just there to hurt Donald Trump and win in 2020.
Okay, I want to play something in for you and then get a quick response. This is from Tom Perez, who heads the DNC, who said, listen, I've worked on these kinds of things. The wording today doesn't mean that the president is not guilty of something. Here's what he said.
I was part of the team in Republican and Democratic administrations preparing those reports. And frequently when we declined a case, we declined it because, not because we didn't have major concerns, but we declined it because we made a conclusion that we couldn't find beyond a reasonable doubt that the allegations were provable. And that's very different.
He says that's something very different. What do you say?
Okay, well, that's the standard of law, is beyond a reasonable doubt. So clearly, the Mueller team did not find anything beyond a reasonable doubt. In fact, the Mueller team came forward and said there is absolutely no evidence of collusion. And Attorney General Barr came out and said there was no obstruction of justice. Because how can you obstruct justice when there was no crime? Because the president did not collude. So the Democrats are going to try and drag this out. We've already seen this. They're not going to accept the results of this report that they fought so hard to protect and preserve, that the president never stood in the way of. But boy, isn't it time for them to come together with the president and say, maybe now we should work on behalf of the American people we've elected to serve. Are they going to legislate, or are they going to investigate? And we're starting to see the path that they're going to go down. Republicans are going to continue to bring jobs back to this country, fund our military, defeat ISIS, which we had this great accomplishment this week. These are the things that the president's focused on. The Democrats are continuing this investigation path and dividing our country, and I don't think that's going to win for them in the long term.
Well, I don't think the investigations are going away anytime soon, though.
Nope.
This one has wrapped. Ronna McDaniel, chair of the RNC, thank you for stopping in.
Thanks for having me, Shannon.